Crystal Lake vocalist Rio departs after 10 years of activity with the band.
Yeah.
He was a really good singer, really good screamer, really good clean vocalist. We did a couple of their songs way back when, but I'm very sad to hear that after 10 years.
Didn't we did one over on our Patreon too, right?
No, that was Crossfaith.
Oh.
Yeah,
I lied. Don't listen.
Very similar styles, genres. So, but it wasn't too long ago. Crystal Lake solidified its new 5-man lineup, but unfortunately, on September 28th, Crystal Lake's vocalist Rio announced that he would be leaving the band after having been part of it for 10 years. Rio's departure is related to a mental disorder called adjustment disorder, with symptoms such as stress, sadness, hopelessness, which then can lead to other physical symptoms, which I'm sure is like the whole self-deletion issue going on in Japan, right? Probably something to do with that, maybe, because isn't that a common thing in Japan with residents and stuff?
Yeah. The amount of stress with work and
even though the news itself is shocking, the uncertainties already began in September last year when Crystal Lake commenced hiatus, stating the reason being Rio's medical treatment. Now, after suffering from illness yet another year, Rio ultimately made a difficult decision to leave the band, as it will be extremely difficult for him to continue as a member of the band in the future. And, of course, you can read this over in his own words over at JRock News. He has a letter, explaining his apologies. We also have it in the Discord server underneath the Crystal Lake tab. And it's just him explaining everything that happened and stuff.
The thing about that, it's compounding because he's already feeling these things while in the band. And then he has to leave the band, which, now you're putting that stress on the band too. So it's a thing to help him, but it's also compounding. So I feel horrible for the guy, and people got to go through this because it's a hole that's impossible to dig yourself out of. You got to get help.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Ryan. Yeah, because like now, how do you do? I don't even know how I would deal with that. Like, how would anyone deal with that? Like, because now you feel like you're letting down a bunch of people,
right?
Along with your fans,
Yeah, but luckily, the fans are
supportive.
Yeah, hopefully he sees that too.
So yeah. If you guys want to check out the full article, this was written by NBT by JRock News. You can check out the full article over there.
Someone said, sounds like anxiety. And man, that's something like when you're in a band and you have all this pressure on you, to put on a good show for people night after night, while they also think that you have like a great life and you're living the dream. It's like, it's a tough thing to balance. So I know personally, I struggle with anxiety when I'm like traveling. All of a sudden my body stops working. I can't,
function. Yes. Dude, I feel it.
Everything stops working and my stomach is constantly aching just because of the fear of uncertainty of what's going to happen. And like it drives Rosie crazy because she loves to travel. But yeah, I know that anxiety can just affect you so much physically. And I can't imagine having to put on shows night after night. Trying
to deal with
your
that.
band's relying on you, your fans are relying on you. Like, I don't think I could do it, even though I'm a musician. I don't think I could live that touring lifestyle,
And it's even worse once he realizes, or whoever's in that situation realizes that this is an issue, right? So now you're combating inside your own head, like, okay, I know that this is making me feel terrible, but I don't want to let them down. So now you're not just feeling bad about letting, yourself down or just feeling that initial anxiety, or feeling anxiety over having anxiety, which is, it just stacks,
Yeah. So I was talking, and and people that, thankfully there's people that haven't experienced this, but if it's harder for them to understand just how impossible it is to get out, there's different levels to it. Sometimes you can will your way out of it, but what we see when it happens up in the news, that's something that you can't, everything's good. Everybody loves you. Your band's doing great, and everything still is just fucking miserable. So
that's rough.
If you're feeling anything, if you're feeling this way, reach out to somebody, get some help, talk to somebody, and don't keep it in.
100%. And, I think a lot of people decide to keep it in because they feel like they're the only person that is dealing with that, and they don't want to bring the people around them down also. But I think almost everybody would be surprised to know that the people that they could rely on to talk to about this stuff have very likely dealt with this themselves or something along those lines where they can relate. And I think most people are very okay with having that conversation and it not taking them down. In fact, for somebody like me who's been, and Wave probably, who's been dealing with anxiety for long periods of time, I also get those stomach aches, Wave, like legitimately sometimes just when I know I have to leave my house. Like I'll be like, oh shit, I have to leave my house, even on a normal activity, like a daily activity that I would perform normally, and I'm not in the right mental state. I'll get a stomach ache beforehand, and it'll really fuck me, fuck me up. And I think that it's just so common, and also so it hasn't been accepted until nowish, right? In our society, so people steer clear from having these conversations with other people. But I think it's finally been deemed okay by society that we can just talk about this stuff openly and understand that we have issues that we can work through with other people, and we don't have to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, especially these last 2 years, it's gotten worse because we did have to spend more time at home against our will, in a lot of cases, which for me personally, the longer I stay at home, the harder it is to go back out,
Right. So you guys, use your communities that you're part of. Most people on here are parts of various communities online, and you're going to find somebody online that has had the same issue or at least understands. So use them. My Discord, I know there's a lot of people that are more than willing to help or give you somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Rosie is a huge advocate of that too, because she went through some rough stuff in her teen years that she needed therapy for, and it saved her life. And it really helps. It makes a huge difference. I probably should go myself.
Yeah,
it's hard to accept that you need help from other people sometimes.
That's for sure.
Couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. And and just to be totally real, man, even though I know, and this is what Alan was talking about before, it's sometimes that everything is okay, but you still feel like it's not. I know that my friends care about me, right? But I still choose not to burden them with my burdens, right? So it's that is just a mental hurdle that I think that has been ingrained within us from society, from the time that we were born, that we have to almost push through ourselves and say, okay, we know that the reason that I feel like this isn't because this is how things actually are, but because this is how my brain is working right now, right? So it's almost like you got to fight yourself, but you can. You can most of the time, not always, but most of the time you can, and it helps big time to talk to somebody else that cares also.
Yeah, for me, I feel almost selfish talking about myself for an extended period of time. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm no one wants to hear about this, so I'm just gonna not talk about it. Sorry, Alan.
People do want to hear about. I always say this, the stuff that people witness on the outside is normally 5 times worse than what you're actually seeing. Once you see that act out or break out, it's normally 100 times worse. That's the crazy thing. So a lot of people who knows, it's probably way worse than what we know with the Crystal Lake singer Rio. He's saying this, but it's probably 100 times worse than we actually know it is, because it's just the surface stuff that's coming out. We don't know. So when you see that person breaking down, man, it's probably even worse.
How long has he been holding it in?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't know how long that's been going on.
For more Gaijin goodies like you just saw, be sure to subscribe to the Gaijin Guys podcast and turn on all notifications to be part of the live stream every Sunday. You can also find us wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, etc. You can find even more exclusive content and reactions on our Patreon, patreon.com/Gaijin Guys. I'll see you there. Adios.